Hello and thank you for joining us again here on Bloodworth Miniatures. Today we are putting together the Illuminor Szeras and going over his rules, see how he may or may not fit into your Necron's army. Okay, so first up we're going to take a look at the stat line. Movement 8 is actually pretty good for a character. Usually you're looking at 5 or 6, especially with Necron, so the fact that he moves 8 is great. Weapon skill 3-up, ballistic skill 3-up. You know, I'd love to see these as 2-ups, but what are you going to do? 3-up is still pretty reasonable. Strength 6, toughness 6, not bad for a character. Wound 7, it's actually a lot. He still qualifies for Lookout Sir, but he's got a ton of wounds, which is pretty sweet. And then his attacks are 4, which is not bad. Leadership 10, which is almost never relevant except for some psychic powers, and his save is a 3-up. Of course, we'd love to see 2-up, but 3-up is still pretty good for a character. Next, look at his weapons. He's got the Eldritch Lance in both shooting and melee form. In shooting form, it's 36 range, which is really long. Assault D3, so even if you have him move up, even if you have him advance, he can still shoot this. I'm not a super big fan of D3. I find this almost always ends up just being 1. But, you know, the average is 2, theoretically. Strength 8, which is pretty good. It means you're wounding 2-ups on Space Marines, which is really nice. AP minus 4, so tanks don't usually get a save against it. And it's D6 wounds. Obviously, it would be great to see higher wound count on there, but D6 is not bad. The melee, strength user, so we're looking at strength 6. AP minus 4 again, which is still pretty good, and then a flat 2 damage with the 4 attacks. Flat 2 damage is not bad at all. And then the impaling legs, so this is each time the bearer fights, it makes 2 additional attacks with this weapon. It's at user strength, so it's still 6. AP minus 2, so you know people are still probably going to get some saves, and damage is 1. It still basically makes it so that he has 6 attacks. It's just 2 of them are weaker, which is, you know, it's not bad. He's got living metal, which means he's going to be regaining a wound at the beginning of each of the command phases, and he's got command protocols. He's got rights of reanimation, so in your command phase, you can select one friendly Necron's core unit that's within 6 units of this model. One destroyed model from that unit is reanimated if the selected unit is Necron's warrior unit. D3 destroyed models from that unit are reanimated instead. Each unit can only be selected for this ability once per phase. So that means, like, you basically, if you plop him in the middle of a couple of Necron warrior units, he'll be able to keep reanimating them, assuming that your opponent hasn't just destroyed the entire unit outright. He's also got the ability Illuminor, which means he can this model can use the rights of reanimation ability 1 additional time per turn. So he can literally, between 2 and 6 models, he can just put back on the board. You can just put up to 6 wounds back on the board every turn, which is pretty awesome. He's got Empiric Overcharger, which is an aura. While an enemy psychic unit's within 12 inches of this model, each time a psychic test is taken for that unit, it suffers perils of the warp on any dice roll that includes a double instead of only on double 1s and double 6s. So that's pretty interesting. I wouldn't say it's as good as Deny the Witch, but it's quite good. He's got Atomic Energy Manipulator. In the fight phase, if this model destroys 1 or more enemy models, then at the end of that phase, it can use Mechanical Augmentation ability as if it were the end of your movement phase. So we'll go into the Mechanical Augmentation ability itself. At the end of your movement phase, you can select one friendly Necron's core unit within 6 inches of this model. If you do, roll 1d3 and consult the table below on the D3. So on a 1, until the end of the battle, that's the end of the battle, add 1 to the strength characteristics of the model in that unit. On a 2, until the end of the battle, add 1 to the toughness characteristics of the models in that unit. And on a 3, until the end of the battle, improve the ballistic skill characteristics of the model in that unit by 1. Since you're probably plopping him in the middle of your Necron warriors, you're basically trying to get the 2 or the 3, because the toughness will make them last a little longer, and the ballistic skill will make them shoot a little better, but the strength's not super relevant, because you're usually not trying to get your Necron warriors in a melee combat, but I suppose if they are in melee combat, it will make them a little bit more capable of wounding, I suppose. So, but each unit can only be selected for this ability once per battle, so you can't keep stacking up the different abilities like onto Necron units. So that would be pretty broken if you could, like giving it +1 strength and giving it +1 toughness and then giving it +1 ballistic skill all in the same game would be pretty crazy. But regardless, it's still a pretty interesting ability, and it basically just upgrades a unit, which is not bad. So he's a Necron in his faction keywords. He's an infantry character, dynastic agent, so he can go in any Necron's group. He's a Cryptech, Technomancer, and he's obviously Illuminor Szeras. So that's all of his special rules. I personally think that this model is worth including in a list where you have a lot of Necron warriors. I'd say if you have 3 or 4 units of Necron warriors, he's definitely good. Even if you only have 2, the idea that he could be putting up to 6 of them back on the board every turn is really great. The fact that he's infantry means that he's got obsec, so he can hold points, and basically putting him in the middle of a bunch of Necron warriors seems like a really strong strategy for holding a point, to deny a point from your opponent pretty consistently. So definitely consider him in your list. And again, because of dynastic agent, he's got the flexibility to go into any dynasty, so he's pretty interesting model overall. He's got some really interesting skills, and as far as HQ choices go, he's definitely one of the more interesting ones. Not to mention his sculpt looks very cool. Just some notes about putting this model together. That little orb thing he's holding is actually like several different pieces like connect to make it. It's really tricky. I do recommend using plastic glue so you can shift it around a little bit as you're putting those pieces together. The sort of wave of gore that's coming off of the unit that he's killing is also pretty fragile and is in a few different pieces. I'd just be really careful when you're putting these pieces together. Maybe consider using tweezers. I ran into some trouble here and there you might see along in the video, but overall I managed to get it together without breaking anything, so kudos to me. But yeah, just go to the outro here. Thanks again. Thanks again for joining us while we put together the Illuminor Szeras and discuss his rules. I hope the insights were helpful and you can see whether or not he fits into your list. Once again, my name is Kyle, and you and your hobby time is worth it.